You know, we skipped over, in a sense, something really important, because here we are surrounded by landscape, and you've talked about your interaction with this landscape. But what we actually haven't asked at any stage yet is, why landscape? Why aren't we in a gallery surrounded by a whole range of portraits or a whole range of entirely abstract works? What was it that settled you in this direction?
I think that again comes back to who I am and my kind of family and cultural tradition. And when I say I relate this way of working to the landscape, I mean, I have worked with other genres. I don't generally exhibit them. And I still work the same way. This is just how I work, but it makes sense with the landscape. I understand it. So I'm perfectly adequate as a portrait painter, but this is where the absolute gut feeling of I understand this, I know what I'm trying to do and why I'm trying to do it. And even if I'm in a genre that is relatively well populated, I kind of have a sense of where I fit in that, and that there is kind of room for me in that. It just makes sense.
It does make sense. It's interesting, one of the strongest memories I have of Tim at work, in fact, was not the most recent trip, the Flinders trip, but a trip to the Larapinta area west of Alice Springs a year or more ago. And you'll know the situation I'm going to describe now, but for those who haven't perhaps heard this before, there's a pathway, quite a steep, slightly difficult pathway right up to a high area above Stanley Chasm, and spectacular huge rocks, and then a particularly sharp, jagged peak. And at the end of the day, there were a number of people who'd climbed quite high up this area, and I followed the pathway up. And when I got to the very, very, very highest part, at the end of the pathway, with a howling, biting wind, in the last rays of the sunlight, there was Tim crouched down behind a huge boulder with a sort of Sherpa type beanie pulled down over his ears, freezing cold, and trying to capture the last rays of sun on this particular place. Can you continue the story and tell us, because you were frantic, speaking about anxiety, it was amazing.
But it's that same thing. I was so fully happy and in the moment then. Like that, at that moment, and I think on that trip, it was maybe about the second or third day of the trip. I'd had 4 or 5 sort of works before then, and first, right away on that trip, there was a sense of this is fantastic. This is just a great bunch of people, great environment, great way to do work. But that day was when it was like, yeah, this is bringing everything together. Like, this is putting me back in the environments I want to be in. I hadn't been able to be out in some of those wilderness environments for a few years, young kids and all the rest of it, and so this was placing me back out there with all the art materials, fully supported, and I was just happy as anything, but at the same time, happy and fully, laden with anxiety, because it was like 20 minutes, you could watch the light come across. Richard was taking some photos. I didn't even realise he was around, because I had 3 beanies on and the iPod underneath that, and I was just like fully in a little world. But I think that is a fantastic, it's a hand-eye coordination thing, just to put yourself under that pressure and then try and produce. And in a way, actually doing this whole show has been a slightly larger version of the same thing, where I actually gave myself some very limited time frames to do the whole show, even though half of it was back in the studio, so that in a bigger way I could recreate some of that and just see what happened, whether I fell apart or whether it actually worked to do a whole exhibition.